It's a wonderful life. It has that kind of a town feeling, and especially during Christmas time, it gets even more so. When I first met with him, which was not long ago, I was so taken with his work that I decided that I wanted to put him into this holiday show.
Working with the model a lot of times brings the ideas. Sometimes I have a very basic idea, and then working with the model, they change something, they move in a certain way, then it might even change the subject of the thing I had in mind. The original story is called Susanna and the Elders, and that's based on an Old Testament story, but really for me it's an art historical context which I'm playing with. It's called Vintage Photograph. I did it, that's 2003 I did that. So I guess I was about 4 years into trying to become a painter, and again, working with the model, she reached up that way, and then it was a blank wall. I just kind of added the photograph, and various things like that happened. There's a lot of combining, various images.
Well, aside from being a very excellent landscape artist, he seems to have a very, very strong connection to and feeling to recreating pieces of Manhattan. Beautifully done. The Village Cigar Store on 7th Avenue, I mean, how many times have we all passed by that place?
I believe in authenticity, and my kind of authenticity is where you paint from life perceptually, so the whole essence of what you're doing comes from your hand and then to your eye. So you're looking at something, you're taking it in, and then it comes out to your hand again. So it's more about your mind being a filter for what you see, but at the same time you're adding all the knowledge that you know and all your history into that, all the art that you've ever seen in your life, plus the way you view nature, and everything is involved. So it's like an infinity affecting what you're painting. People like me who go out and paint on the street and sell my paintings to the people who live in the neighborhoods that I paint, I think are the true avant-garde of what's happening in art.
David Rogers is somebody I recently met. It turns out that he's a professor of furniture design at Kutztown University.
Probably within the last 2 years, I've been just focusing on figurative sculpture. This one was from a live model, and how I choose the people is because of the way they look. The sort of character in the face, the certain qualities that seem to be present in the form, quality of human nature, of character, the psyche, whatever, is that there's a little bit of that narrative in everyone's face. It's about certain qualities of human nature that relate to hopefully everyone. That when you see it, you can connect with it, and may remind you of either somebody or some certain quality that engages you on some level.
Myron Heise is, unless I'm mistaken, he's one of the founding members of the New York Street Painters. To a very large degree, some of his pieces seem to remind me much of Edward Hopper's work. He captures eloquent settings inside and outside, and street settings. He does New York, the Midwest. If you were to Google Myron, you'll come up with a couple of pages of rather impressive information.
Well, I enjoy painting life, the life that is around me. Like we have a painting here of BAC Garage. That's the painting of the local garage in Bancroft, Nebraska. Dwayne Flock at work and inside his garage and the activities. It is a small town grocery store. It's Nancy's grocery store in Rosalie, Nebraska, and that's a population 200 people. And this is Rosalie and Bancroft were the towns of my childhood, and we used to patronize Rosalie. And this was done in the 80s when Nancy's was in operation. And then the other paintings here are of New York. So I'm New York and Nebraska. I live in New York, and this one is of Andy's van, and it's in the meat market area in New York City. The artist is a storyteller, and I'm telling the story of life in our time as I see it, the best I can, and I think that's all the great artists ever did.
Many of the homeless people will find themselves either sleeping on the bench or sleeping on the grass in the spring and the summertime, and to a very large degree this was their home. So I would very, very carefully, without invading anybody's privacy, I would take pictures of the homeless, with the end goal down the road of maybe doing a documentary. They're not looking, no one is looking at the despair that somebody sees. But I just don't think they know what to do. The one where she's sleeping against a whole bunch of boxes that are tied up on a cart of wheels, so that this is basically, essentially, all of her possessions, her home, and what's in these boxes, I don't have a clue. They could be paper, they could be old clothing, we don't even know. But she's just napping against the side of these boxes, and what comes to mind is that we all go home to a warm hearth, and we order Chinese food, and we watch TV, and we watch the latest programs and what have you. But our whole life, and she was probably 60 years old, is contained in this box. 4 or 5 years ago, I was in my normal industrial design mode. I was developing a whole series of tools and devices that allowed me to bring out three-dimensional qualities in an otherwise two-dimensional image. I started working on many of the photos that I took over a 20-year span of the homeless to try to somehow give them that third dimension. I also tapped into copyright expired public domain of images of people, whether they're nudes or scenic scenes going back to the 20s and 30s. It appears that everybody is excited, and they can hardly believe themselves when they come close and they see that this image is virtually coming out of what they would expect to be an otherwise two-dimensional photograph. The visitors coming from all over will have no problem finding exciting things. You have lots of restaurants to go to. There's a great deal of gift stores, and other galleries are popping up. And they have all kinds of Christmas fests and things of that nature. It's an exciting place. It reminds me of Jimmy Stewart in It's a Wonderful Life.